Happy New Year. Hello, all my friends in TV land. This is Senior Issues, etc. I'm your host, Vita Verdon. Now, get your paper and pencil. I've got a lot of information. You see what I have set up, and the show is going to be about defeat. As a matter of fact, it's going to be about agony defeat. And who I have on the show today is, now get a hold of this name, and you're going to find out what it is, a Pedorthist. I even know how to spell it. And everybody calls him Dr. J because he isn't an actual physical doctor, but he's a doctor of the shoes. It's J. Umanski. I got it right? Glad to have you back.
Thank you for having me
Jay,
back.
the last time you were on the show was February 2006. So that's a 12-year gap, but we're going to fill in that gap, and you've had a lot of highs and lows in this. And for the benefit of our audience, our faithful audience, I must say, I'd like you to give a little background of yourself. So just look right into that camera. But before that, I want you to blow a kiss unto your family.
Okay. Of which I owe a great debt, I assure you.
Well, that deserves a double kiss then.
They're the best.
All right. So now I know that what you are is, you are a Pedorthist, but before we get to the meaning of that, how about giving us a little bit of dirt about yourself?
Sure.
So just look right in that camera and give us your best self-commercial.
Okay. Well, I'll start by saying, growing up, very much a arts and crafts kid. Love to help people. And through my, I'll say, childhood of playing with plaster Paris and pouring wax molds and all these things. And my mom is a great artist. But of course, every son should be a lawyer or a doctor. And so I started off in my schooling to become a orthopedic surgeon. And along that path, I found this field called Pedorthics. And it really, to me, it's what I call medical arts and crafts. And it is different for each person, so there's no two people the same that I help. And through the coursework, there was no license at the time. And so every college had a different part of this course. And so learning how to take care of children born with clubfoot or low tone and not being able to walk at the right ages, people with diabetes and sores on their feet, people with arthritis of all different kinds. And I found that basically shoes are an arts and crafts project. And to be able to understand medically what needs to happen and to be able to bridge that gap, I have just found my calling. And I've taken every type of coursework there is, from the sports, the way shoes relate to sports, dancing, walking, how they protect your health. So I'll say through the Northwestern program, the University of Illinois program, University of Chicago, I laughingly say I've spread my parents' money all over the country learning this craft.
Well, maybe you could spell it out for our audience so that they can look it up and find out what the meaning is.
Sure. Because
that's a word that isn't familiar. We're familiar with podiatrists, but
Right.
we're not familiar with Pedorthist.
So just the word ped, P-E-D, is Latin for foot.
Okay.
And the or is for orthopedics.
Okay.
And the word thist is simply the practice of. So pedorthics is basically like a foot orthopedic speciality.
You know, I learned how to spell it because it's very phonetic. It's just how the wording is phonetically spelled. Okay, so this is the field of pedorthy. Is that it?
You could, I think, say it that way. The field of pedorthics, or the practice of pedorthics.
I know that you're most known for Agony of Defeat.
That's a company I started about over 20 years ago. I've been in the field for over 31 years, having a conversation with a great old client like you. It's been that long. I've literally put and helped people, I'll say, get comfortable from the grandparents, the parents, and now putting it on the grandchildren's feet. So I feel like I've been doing it for a few days.
And so that in the process of doing it, you've learned some things along the way, right?
It is always a learning experience, every client.
I know that when I first went to you, you had a small shop in the Red Top Mall in Libertyville, and it was Agony of Defeat, but you had a lot of retail. And then you went from there to a really Manganga's store in Mundelein, right?
Yep, and retail has changed so
It's
much since
changed
we got
so-
started. Oh
You
my
know,
God.
maybe we should go over with our audience what some of the changes that have occurred.
Well, I would say that online shopping has easily taken over the brick and mortar stores.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to say, when you see patients like I do, from tiny children to the great grandparents, to be the old fashioned family store and carry, I'm going to say, enough different types of products to please everybody, it's unrealistic in today's marketplace. And so having a medical degree, not a business degree, you have to cut the service and the quality, and basically you're either a discounter or you're buying them online. And that has taken me from a shoe store where I used to practice Pedorthics right alongside of a retail shoe store. And this would give people that instant gratification of coming in, being seen, and looking at the products that could be made comfortable for them.
But also it gave the public an opportunity to come in and try on all kinds of shoes, get the model number,
Yep.
find out what a professional opinion was, and then go online and get it $25 or $30 cheaper.
Absolutely.
I think that's what broke the retail business.
Oh, no question. And it also it set up a bad karma when someone's coming in to get your service, but then they're taking a picture of a shoe and then running away to go buy it. And I just felt that the timing was right to give up the shoe store and change the business model to specifically treating people's needs, even after they've gotten the shoes, whether from their doctor, online, or happen to still be buying them at a retailer.
So now you have relocated close to the Bone and Joint Institute in Libertyville?
That's correct. Illinois Bone and Joint, Praxis Physical Therapy, Condell Advocate. There's just all my, I'll say, favorite referring physicians, physical therapists. I'm now surrounded. So it's a perfect location for me.
Well, you've gone from a small retail store to a Manganga's retail store. Now you're back to your first love.
Yes.
You're like in a doctor's office setting, and that's where your talent lies.
Exactly, and really helping one person at a time. I think that's exactly what I love, and it helps focus on just their needs. It's not a shoe store.
Well, this has been a learning curve for you, but it seems to be a learning curve that has brought you in the right place at the right time for a new beginning. And this is a new year with a new beginning. So I know that you have really, my latest fall has my last fall, that when I broke a hairline fracture along my plate mound, has changed the formation of my foot, that I have one foot larger than another, which a shoemaker cannot accommodate. In that it has brought me back to the place, at least I can have shoes that I don't have one that's too big or one that's too tight on me, that can accommodate my feet. So you've saved my life in that, as far as that's concerned. And so I'm one of the cases that you can talk about, but I know you want to talk about a lot of different types of cases that a Pedorthist treats.
But even in your case, when you've got one foot longer than the other, to have someone make one shoe longer than the other, is more people can understand it as a seamstress or a tailor, because they're kind of used to that, where someone takes pants or a coat and fits it to your size. And it is a very unique thing. But again, even in your case, you can't tell that there's been any work done on it. They were shoes you brought to me. You did not buy them from me. And where else or what type of service could possibly accommodate that?
Yeah. Well, could you explain how you do that?
Well, we found an area on your shoe where it had that cute little belt over the top with a little buckle. And I knew that at that point, if we could move the strap, literally cut the shoe in half, lengthen it, fill that space where we lengthened it, and put the strap back over the work that I did, you would never see that the shoe changed or got longer. So it did not take away from the looks of the shoe and added a little over a full size in length.
So as a doctor of shoes, do you do surgery on shoes then?
I do surgery on shoes, and I laughingly say it, I've never lost a patient. So
Now, every case is different, like a doctor, right?
correct. So everyone's needs come in different. Everyone has different things already. You already had the shoes. Sometimes you may be looking for the shoes. You had a situation where one foot's longer than the other. Many people
Right.
have a situation where one leg is longer than the other.
Oh,
so if
and
you
then-
had your hip surgery or a knee surgery, I would then add height to one shoe so that you could walk balanced.
Oh, so what were we going to start on? Are we going to start on the feet, or are we going to start on shoes?
We're going to start with shoes because that's where it starts.
Okay,
And many people ask me the question, what's the best shoe?
yeah.
And that's a very loaded question, a very hard question to answer.
Right.
So I step back for a minute and I explain that the best shoe is what's the best shoe for you at the time. And even brand names, because people will say, isn't New Balance a good shoe, or is SAS a good shoe? Within each company, they make different models. And so understanding the different models then moves into understanding your feet. And so it really does start with your feet. But the way it translates to shoes, and I brought some models, this is a high arched foot. This is a medium arched foot. So this is what a high arch would look like
Okay,
compared to a medium height arch.
so the arch is just a little bit lower,
Correct. And this
is a flat foot.
would be a completely flat foot. And what this does is it keeps changing shape, is what happens when the arch drops. So when you look at shoes, and I can show an example of two basic New Balance running shoes. These are both women's running shoes. It's very hard to discern the difference looking at them this way. So what I explain to people is they need to look at them this way. And if their foot shape is more like a figure eight, this model in my right hand is going to be the best shoe for them. If their foot is completely flat and it's shaped like a square, this will be the best model for them. And so that's where the advice given, things found online, it's very tricky. And until someone really evaluates your foot, this is for a flat foot, this is for a high arch. But
Oh,
this,
that's good. Well, we're going to come back to that, but right now what we're going to go into is, I have my little commentary. This is Vita's Pearls of Wisdom. Well, with the Pearls of Wisdom, now I know that the open line to change your insurance is over with for Medicare, but you can still, for your supplementary policy, you can still, they've given an extension, make changes on it. And that now that we've come into this season, I have a couple tips for you as far as walking is concerned. One thing is I do walk with a cane. Now I have one particular cane that I use during the icy weather, and I wanted to recommend it to people. And you can get this little attachment at any medical supply store. Now I happen to live in the Libertyville area, so there's a medical supply store on Hawley Street. It's called New Haven, but there's a big medical supply store in Waukegan, and I know there's a big medical supply store in Evanston. And it's a little tiny attachment that you put on to the bottom of your cane, and it flips up and it flips down. And when it flips down, it's got like a little dagger on it, and that is if you're walking in an icy area, that it digs right in and it will cement it. Okay, so, and it's relatively cheap. I think it's under $10, but it is a lifesaver, because I've used it in walking on icy areas, and it digs right into it. That's one thing. And then there's another thing that I wanted to recommend for you, is a lot of people use walkers. So there's a little attachment that they put onto 2 feet of the walkers, and they call them skis. And they actually look like little miniature skis. And what they do, and that's a relatively low-priced item. And the advantage that gives you is, you've seen a lot of walkers and they put tennis balls on them to make them slide. Well, this is like these little skis that come onto the bottom of the walker, and it's just like you're skiing along. And also, now, as we're talking to the foot doctor, Dr. J, he's going to recommend this too. The type of shoes that you're wearing in inclement weather, that is very important, and how the soles of your shoes go on. I know that to keep yourself walking is a real important thing, and it's really important to have the properly fitted shoe. And how he's explaining it, it's easy for him, but it's a very complicated process. I know that he has a sewing machine in his office. He has his office like a doctor's office, but it's also like a laboratory, that how he has changed how my shoes, I couldn't even wear these shoes. I think I brought in 3 or 4 pairs of shoes. I couldn't even wear them because they weren't fitting properly. So what I'm telling you, something that is very vital, because as he says, Pedorthist, this isn't a whole framework of people that you can find at Walmart or something. This is a specialty shop, and when you find out, how good it is to have your shoes corrected in such a way that they're comfortable for you, and that you're not in agony of defeat. So we are so happy to talk about it. We're going to get back to the different types of shoes that he has for us. Okay, Dr. J, we're ready for you again.
Okay. Well, we're going to start with just some basics so people
Okay.
really can follow along. So
Okay.
everyone gets started on a size. And I brought these measuring sticks to give you an idea, because this one is probably older than me, and this is something that you may also see in specialty stores. These are guesstimeters. Neither one of these scales make shoes. So a size 8 made in Italy, Germany, or Wisconsin are all going to run differently. So anyone that's caught always buying the same size is probably in the wrong size. So that's why I bring these, is it's not as important as to what size you're measuring on here. This is just a starting point.
I didn't know that. So, if it's a European sizes, they vary.
They do.
Oh.
The other thing to know about size is every time you go up a full size, you would need to go down a width. This is a complementary size system. It means people's feet and the shoes get bigger or smaller 3-dimensionally. And there is a type of measurement that no shoe company tells you how deep the shoe is. So by adjusting length and width, so we all know what an 8B or an 8 wide, but when you're trying to keep your toes away from the end of that shoe and not have it slip in the heel, it's important to know that there's a complementary size system as to the shoe. As it gets longer, you would want to go narrower if you only needed length. Otherwise, that next size is always going to feel too big. This is why getting properly fitted in a shoe is always such a challenge for people. And knowing whether you have one of these 3 foot types of a high arch or a low or a medium arch, is your foot flexible or is it not flexible? And that also makes a big difference when someone's just trying to get into the right shoe to start with. And that's why I bring these models and talk about sizing, because you have to be really seeing how the shoe fits your particular foot more than the size that's marked inside of it.
All right. Now, do you have a website?
I do have a website. That's
I know you're building on it, right?
right. So it is, I'll say, going to be ever changing, as over these next few months we'll be, at this point, seeing people by appointment. There are several days I see patients. The other days I'm actually doing the crafting myself to change these things.
All right. Well, what is the website?
agonyofdefeat.com.
agonyofthefeet.com. So
Correct.
they can go right onto there. And on there, do you have information?
There is current information. There's also a way to email me or contact me. There's address and hours.
And where are you located now? What is your address?
We're at 704 Florsheim Drive in the Florsheim Professional Plaza in Libertyville. And we're basically right off of Milwaukee Avenue.
So you're right off of Milwaukee Avenue. I know there's the Walgreens on the corner there, right?
Correct.
You turn on the Walgreens, and then you're the first driveway. coming in from turning down that side street there?
Right.
What is that, Archaeas Parkway?
Yeah, and so
Arch-
I tell people we're just about a block east of Milwaukee Avenue.
And so you have regular office hours, but how about your telephone number?
That's 224-475-0026.
Okay, so we can get back to the shoes now.
So I think when someone gets their shoes and they're not working, or they're not working well enough, it basically comes down to a simple fact. The shoes that you buy out of the box match each other, and no one out there in your audience or you have feet that match.
Nobody has feet that match? I thought I was the only odd one that I didn't have.
Nope, you're in a big community. It would be very rare that someone has 2 feet that are an exact match to each other. So what I say by default, your shoes can only fit 1 foot best. And so everything from, I'm going to say, I just think that the number of ways to change a shoe, the number of ways to make them comfortable, always shock people that these things can even be done. So I'm going to move away from the feet for a minute, but we'll get back to it. If you had back surgery and could no longer lace your shoes because you could not reach them or could not manage them, if you had the type of arthritis that stopped your hands from tying, by taking a shoe that is a tie shoe and then converting it to a Velcro closure is something.
Oh, that's so interesting. That
people don't think
that
about.
That looks like that's a tie shoe.
So
But
no
it's not.
one wants to look orthopedic, whether they're 8 or 88, don't want to look orthopedic.
Right.
And so they're always shocked to see what can
That's
be done.
so interesting.
When it comes to adding a wedge or tilting a shoe, this is where I've split the sole and inserted a wedge to prevent someone's foot, in this case, from what they call supinating or turning their ankle or rolling out.
Oh, because it was too low of a center there, is that what you're saying?
Right. Someone's foot is actually positioned on its side, and so
So
this
you-
wedge corrects it.
Oh, so you put a corrective measure where their out of position is.
Exactly.
I got it.
And that will have a big effect on their knee, on their hip, and just the way that they're walking. When you're dealing with buckles and getting this little pin to fit in, I can convert this to Velcro so that it still looks like a buckle, but you can adjust it to any amount of swelling or socks that you may change or any of those types of things. And so they're always impressed to see that it doesn't have to look orthopedic in nature. You wouldn't even know that I changed the shoe.
Right.
And so this is often for people that have issues with their hands or their back or swelling issues that aren't even actually addressing the feet themselves. So just in terms of making their life easier, making their shoes more convenient, just more comfortable to wear.
Now, I know you have had people that you make shoes too, don't you?
Correct.
And talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
Because I know that you had mentioned if a person thinks they're going to have a pair of shoes made, it's going to last for a lifetime.
Right.
That's so foolish.
Well, custom shoes can be very expensive. They can be into the thousands of dollars to handcraft it from scratch. Ultimately, when your feet do not fit any shoe shape from any shoe manufacturer, and they're simply outside the realm of finding anything off a box, we would start by taking a mold of your foot. And so this is what a casting looks like. From this cast, it gets poured, and we would end up with a plaster model of your foot. And this is where we'll make all the corrections to it and add an arch support to it. From this, we make a last. And this is a more permanent form in which you can have many shoes made over. Now, I have developed a special technique over the years where I literally take apart a shoe that you may already have or a shoe style that you like and reform it over your last and put a brand new sole on it, and then this last comes out of the top, just like you taking your foot out of a shoe. But at the end of the day, it's still just a pair of shoes. And you might get a year or more use out of them, but they would need to be taken care of, and they could be resoled and rehealed and all those things the same.
But people don't understand that they think if it costs a lot of money,
It should last forever.
It should last forever.
Well, some of the other things we do, because custom-made shoes are so much money. If your foot has a bunion on one side, and a lot of people will say, can you stretch this for me? And the problem with stretching it is, if your foot is hanging over the edge of the shoe, you're likely going to end up with a callus or an ulcer where that line is. So what I've done is just to reshape the shoe, is I've cut down the area that needed to be wider.
Okay.
I pulled the shoe out and I filled that space. So from the top, you cannot see that this is 3 widths wider than, we'll say, the other shoe. And there's going to be no overhang of this person's bunion over the side.
Oh.
This is another situation where people sometimes have turned their ankle or have had ankle-type surgeries, and where the shoe sole comes straight up and down. This now has a flare to it because I've cut into the heel and pushed it out, so it makes it very difficult for someone to turn their ankle.
So you angle it to balance it off to make them a straight, like the foot is corrected. You're correcting the shoe.
Correct. So now the shoe takes your foot shape, almost as though it was a custom shoe. At way less of a cost and way faster, and then the whole thing doesn't have to be made from scratch.
I bet you'd get a lot of complicated questions asked to you about the feet, because it could be such a multitude of things that could be wrong.
Oh, my goodness, yes. Well, that's why it starts with what they call a Pedorthist evaluation, and it's checking to see, do joints bend? Are you compensating because of a knee or a foot surgery? And there are so many types of foot surgeries and things that can affect that. I'll just say that the old-fashioned solution, and it's why I brought some of the things that they don't use anymore or are hard to use, but this is a very common textbook solution. It's called an Arizona brace.
Oh, okay.
It's heavy, it's clunky, it requires you to buy a different size shoe for the foot that this is on.
Okay.
And this would be more of revolutionary. This is called a toe-off brace. And as you can see, I even put it in a high heel shoe. And as you can tell, this brace would have no chance of giving someone an opportunity to wear something nicer.
Right.
And these braces, in a lot of cases, serve the same function. And this is so much lighter.
Oh, look at that.
And you're entering it from the back, so that both the shoe and the brace slip on at the same time.
So your leg really supports the brace. That is ingenious.
That's exactly what happens. And
that's ingenious.
And when it comes to shoes, this has a full orthotic removable insole, and you would not expect to see that in a shoe like this or with a rocker sole. So for someone with stiff toes that's had bunion surgery or arthritis, they may even be able to wear a dress shoe they didn't know was possible.
Well, I tell you, we're just about at the end of the line. So what would you leave as a closing remark? Because this is the end of it. We could go on about this because it's such a wide field, and there's so few like you in it. We're happy you are.
Well, I would have to say there's no need to walk in pain. You should not be putting up with corns and calluses. They are the precursor to something bigger happening. So there's always a way to prevent or fix your foot issues. And you are not alone or left with just what's in the shoe store.
You've heard Dr. J, and when you out there come to the end of your rope, you tie a knot and hang on. You know why? Because the best is yet to come. What we want y'all to do this week is catch the spirit.